you may not know me, but my name is Gabriel, and I want to be an ecologist when I grow up. But for today, I just wanted to come out and give everyone who may want to watch this a little lesson on something called niches in ecology and biology. So if we're going to be talking about niches, the first thing you want to know is what is the definition of a niche. So the most basic terms I could give you of what a niche is in terms of ecology is basically how an organism specializes in a certain thing within its environment. So an example of a niche could be something like the giraffe, well known for its long neck. This long neck gives the giraffe the ability to pick off leaves off the top of the trees within its environment. These leaves on top of the trees are not accessible to most or any other organisms within the giraffe's environment, making it very good for a giraffe with a longer neck to actually be able to capitalize off this lack of actual animals who could reach the top of trees that aren't itself. Another example could be with leopards. Leopards have very good claws and muscular builds that are basically built for being extremely good climbers. Now, what this could mean is that they have better options of prey going in with more climbing and perching prey, such as birds or small rodents like squirrels or chipmunks, if they exist within their environment. So, something that I would always suggest you do when studying ecology or biology is always try to categorize almost everything, or at least a decent amount of stuff within what you're studying. The reason for this is because it's very easy to forget certain things because how much the topics of ecology and biology go over. Now, being able to categorize stuff could really improve how much you remember and give you a better idea of what you're looking at. And that's exactly what I did with niches. I made my own categories that aren't exactly scientifically made as official things, but they really help me understand more on different kinds of niches. Now, these categories go in order as consuming niches, combative niches, and environmental niches. The consuming niche is basically just what the organism consumes. It could be a certain kind of salt or a certain kind of metal. It could be anything. Going back to that example of the giraffes and the leaves on top of the trees, that is a consuming niche. Now, another niche is the combative niche, the second one. That is basically how an organism interacts with other organisms and how they deal with them. In a situation where they might be having to fight them or where they're trying to get food from them as a carnivore or an herbivore or whatever they may be. And third and final niche is the environmental niche. It's basically how an organism might interact with its surroundings and might deal with different problems within its environment. And that is basically all the niches that I could exactly think of as the most important ones you might want to know. So another thing that I also consider very important for if you're studying ecology or biology is always take an idea and try to kind of stress it or magnify that ability into a new organism. And theoretically create another organism that could actually use that ability in a certain way. So example, if we take something like the tick, something that most people have not figured out yet, but it's fairly new research and info, is that ticks don't jump on you. Rather, they do something called questing, where they put their arms up on tall leaves, using grasses that they might try to climb onto you. And basically what they do is they use the static electricity you make by walking around, and it basically grabs them and floats them towards you. So they don't jump. They get grabbed by a magnetic force and get pushed towards you, and they latch onto you like that. So this animal right here, the Batliostis that I made, it kind of uses that the static electricity to basically do that. Now, it does it through these two parts, the frontal aluminum part and the back aluminum part. The frontal aluminum part is meant to make a charge that would actually drag in prey options. And so basically how it works is it will rub these two aluminum parts together, creating a kind of charge that would be able to attract its prey options. And when it must, it will kind of release the charge by stopping the rubbing of the parts together, releasing the charge and basically grabbing the prey towards the mouth, where it will immediately shut down like a real nucleosis, which is what this animal is based off of. The back aluminum parts, rather than rubbing together with another aluminum part, will actually rub against water, which creates a different kind of charge that would be opposite of this charge here. This charge that's created by this aluminum part will make a repelling kind of energy motion with other organisms, preventing them from going behind it where it's more vulnerable. The way it gets this charge is not by rubbing on its own body, but rather rubbing the body against water, which is the main way it gets around. Yeah, the way it gets this is through the aluminum, which is inside of very dense hard rocks on the sea floor. Now the reason why it's consuming niche is because no other organism within this environment is easily able to consume these kinds of minerals and metals and able to actually form these aluminum parts. It is special for this because it's the only one within its main environments that has the ability to actually break down these rocks easily through chewing and actually digest them easily and use that aluminum within the rocks. Which gives us the example of our consuming niche. Now, if we want to look at a combative niche, we have the Rexcon, which is a kind of like overall bovine. There's no specific kind, but if I had to say so, I'd say maybe like a buffalo, maybe, or some kind of cow. Yeah, so the Rexcon is our example of a combative niche. Now, the main feature of Rexcon, which is how it gets its name, which fully is rake oxen. And it's mainly because of the horns. The horns resemble a kind of rake. And what it mainly uses these horns for is for, one, fighting, and two, gathering up grasses and stuff to graze upon. Now, of course, a rake, we all know that they are used to gather up things like leaves and grasses into piles that we used to throw out. But rather than throwing them out, the Rexcon will just graze on these large piles of leaves and grasses. They also use this rake to kind of gather up large piles of things like dirt and rocks and stones, which when in combat situations, they'll use this pile of dirt and rock and throw it at opponents. It's either that or impaling and lacerating their opponents, which is our example of a combative niche, because it's using this main feature to interact with other organisms like plants and animals and all of such. And down here is our altostaro, which is a kind of tree that mainly produces more seed pods and bushes rather than the average leaf. Now, the seed pods are the main thing here. Within them is a highly flammable oil that could easily ignite during higher temperatures, where it's a lot drier in the fields that these altostaros grow in. And now, what this does is when that seed pod drops down, when it ignites, it'll start a wildfire all over the field. This wildfire will not only get rid of any dead grass that might lay in its environment, being the grackman fields or grass clump fields, which you can see by the name, is basically a field where it's full of grassy clumps of dead grass. Yeah, it'll use this fire to kind of rejuvenate the area and clear it up for future generations of Taltostaro. And this is our example of the environmental niche. And that's basically all the main examples of different of these three niches that I have made. Now, knowing this with all these niches, the first thing I would like you to do as our first question is, how could an organism use a resource that is not most commonly used in its environment? Take, for example, salt. Well, in a way for it to actually use it as a combat tool or combat resource. You can take a moment and pause the video for a bit and think of that, maybe write or something, or draw it down and put in the comments if you like to, and then start again and see the next question. So for my example of how an organism could use salt in a way to actually combat its enemies, we must look at one property of salt, which is its ability to kind of draw moisture out of different things. So one idea is that the organism will suck up seawater, which is high in salt, and push that water and filter it through bristle-like teeth, which are kind of like what different whales have. have for trying to get krill. Well, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it'll suck this water through the bristle teeth, which will keep the salt from leaving and going down further inside the animal into its digestive system, and allowing the animal to kind of harvest the salt better. Now with the salt, the animal will coat its teeth that are meant for actually biting with the salt, or and maybe its claws. And with these, whenever it's fighting another animal, it might use the salt to kind of cause extra harm to an animal. Now, as we know, salt draws moisture out. Now, and if we take something like, let's say, a little wound right here, open wound, it's kind of bleeding. If you put salt on that, it'll draw the water out of the blood. This causes extreme pain. If you ever done it before, I haven't done it, but from what I've heard, it hurts a lot. Yeah, this causes a lot of pain, which could be really helpful in the fight to just wear down an opponent or cause them to flinch, which could give you quite the opening in the battle, as an organism that might use salt to fight. Now, for our next question is if I look at my sheet right here, why might an organism inject itself with a numbing agent to try and help itself in a fight? Now, again, take a moment, pause the video, come up with your answer, and come back to me. So, the reason why an organism might inject itself with its own numbing agent in a fight could be kind of like its own kind of adrenaline in a more effective way or more precise way in when they want to use it. If they have to avoid getting hurt, or at least feeling the pain from getting hit by different things like bites or clawing and stuff like that, which could really help an organism get the upper hand in a fight where they don't feel the exhaustion and they don't feel the pain from getting hit by these attacks, while the other organism will most likely feel that pain. So for our next question is, what could an organism do to either use a flammable oil or survive the fire that comes from a flammable oil after a plant like, let's say, the Totostaro releases a flammable oil filled seed pod? Again, take a moment, pause the video, come up with your answer, comment down if you want, and yeah. So one way I believe an organism could use the flammable oils from the Totostaro seed pods is, well, of course, first step is consuming the pod. Now, this whole thing is kind of like a little process where it'll separate the pod from the oils, and of course, the pod, that's just a regular food without the oils, going straight down towards the stomach. But the oils will be sectioned off into their own little area, being in a sac within the throat. Now, when the organism must use this oil, it will kind of like cough it out and like just give it a nice little spill out from the mouth. And this oil will be able to be ignited by something like rocks or maybe metallic teeth that could create kind of like a little spark that could light the oil. Now, the reason why the organism might do this is because this oil, of course, being able to burn stuff within the grassy field, will be able to easily cause damage to any organisms that might be hiding within the field, or make it so it's a more clear area, which could provide a lot more safety or trust within an area for that organism that might be using the Totostaro seed oils. Alright, so real quick before we wrap things up and summarize, I just want to play our little video with our last little question. Now, the question is, what kind of niche could we think is being shown in the video? When you come to the conclusion of what niche it is, whether if it's consuming niche, a combative niche, or a environmental niche, you just come up with that and give your reason why in the comments and why you picked that niche, and yeah, then we'll end up with the last bit of the video.
Just one lemon left.
Lemon Skittles are my favorite.
They're my favorite.
Let's settle it the usual way.
Settle it the usual way!
Settle it the usual way! The usual way! Settle it!
Settle it the usual way!
Settle it the usual way!
Settle it! Woo!
Let's settle it The usual way! The usual
Not so fast! Lemon is my favorite. And I'm a lefty.
Now, after watching that video, I would say and conclude that that video most definitely demonstrated being a combative niche. Mainly just by seeing a main feature within almost every single one of the people in the town. The adults, the kids, the babies, even the dog had a massive right arm. Now, all I gotta say is, if any of us, at least most of us, were in that town, no one could settle it the usual way. Now, I'm like, I got a decent amount of muscle, but I am not doing it the usual way. I will not succeed, not even against the little kids, not even against the baby or the dog. The dog can't even put his thumbs. I would still lose to that dog. Yeah, if you believe it might have been something else, like the consuming niche or the environmental niche, say why you think it is. Say why I'm wrong. If you think that it is the combative niche, support me. Say why it really is a combative niche. If you have any ideas that might be different from mine as to why it is combative niche, always express your ideas and opinions. No matter what it is. In science, always express your ideas and opinions. It's very helpful, and it's really good for understanding more about stuff. And until later, thanks for watching. Hope you see you again. And goodbye.